Welcome to J Lowe Artist YouTube channel. Today we'll be doing some drawing with graphite. So get out your pencils, your cotton swab, kneaded eraser, anything that you think you need to draw with. Have it right handy. And let's draw together. Remember, art makes life better. The first thing we're going to do is I'm going to set aside my 6B pencil and my cotton swab for now. So I'm going to draw like this. Usually I grab the pencil about the middle. If you grab it towards the front, you draw a little heavier. If you grab it towards the back, it's a little lighter. But you kind of hold it like you're showing it to somebody between your thumb and your forefinger. These other fingers, some people like to grip them around it like this. Me, I just kind of hold on to it with all four of them and the thumb. And then we're going to draw on the side of our pencil. Now, when we first start drawing, you want to say to yourself, okay, good composition means that my subject matter, which here is this tarsier, needs to touch or come close to touching 3 of the 4 sides. So we're going to put his little rear end close to the edge over here. Not too far, but about ½ an inch or so away from it, and say, okay, that's where his little backside is going to be. And then his little legs and his little rear end, maybe down in here a little bit. That would bring his head right up in here. So now we've just established where we're going to put him. And you want to use up most of the page. Okay, don't have this little tiny thing in the middle. So you have to kind of push yourself to draw large. Then you start out simple shapes. Well, his whole body is kind of this bean shape. Or I don't know what you'd call that. But it's about like this. Now you know where he's going to be. Then you start dissecting that. You say, okay, maybe I just want to put his head in. Maybe his head is about right here. There's a piece of wood that's in the way here. And it's coming up here. So he's kind of latched onto this little branch. You can keep that branch going all the way through. Diagonally. He's got his little tail that comes off the bottom here. So there's a little tail there. And then his little feet, just lump them together. Just go, okay, he's got a little hand. It's about right in here. There's another one that's about right down in here. And he's got his little foot that's off of there. And another one that's over here. All we're doing is figuring out where everything goes. We're not doing any kind of detail here. If you watch somebody draw and they draw details, they've been drawing for years. When you're beginning drawing, this is the best way to do it. And even when you've been drawing for a long time, this is still the fastest way to do it. Then you want to say, okay, somewhere off of this hand, is that in the right place? Is it about right? Maybe his head's a little high. Maybe I'll cut that down a little bit. Then he's got these little ears. They're kind of over here. I'll put one there, and he's got one that just peeking out by that branch there. Right in there somewhere. And then he's got these eyes, and again, I'm going to oval them out. They're not quite oval, but I just want to get them the right size and in about the right position. And then right in between there, close to his little thumb, if his little thumb came up here, his little nose about right in there. Now you look at it, look at your scrap, look at your drawing, and if it's off a little bit, change it. Make the eye bigger, smaller, up, down, whatever you need to do, change it. Don't erase it first, change it first. Then erase what's wrong. Now the reason we do that is, number one, if we erase it first, then we lose our point of reference. And often we make the same mistake over and over and over. So draw it in correctly first and then erase it. So if you established everything, you've got some of the proportioning in, you've got some of the things going where they're supposed to go. You can even put this little leg in there if you want to. It's where about right in here, somewhere about up in there. Little leg right there. Little part of the arm over here. Part of the leg kind of comes up right there. And again, if it's not in the right place, we can always change it. I have to confess, this is the first time I've ever drawn a tarsier, this little critter. It's the first time I've ever drawn one. I like drawing things for the first time. I like a good challenge, too. I guess that's why I like drawing people. This is a good challenge. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my kneaded eraser. I'm just going to get rid of some of the edges that I don't think I'm going to need. Inside, outside, whatever. Just going to get rid of things that I don't think I'm going to need. And I haven't really done any details yet. Everything is still very, very basic. Now, getting rid of those things, you don't have to, because you're going to put graphite out on here anyway. But sometimes it avoids a little confusion. The other thing I want to just let you know, that we are not going to draw edges around everything. I mean, this is an edge, but I'm not going to take my pencil and draw a heavy line around anything. Okay, we might need a little bit around the eye, but those are kind of the last things you want to do. So now what I want to do with the edge of my pencil is I want to pick up the darkest areas, pick up shapes that I see of darkness, and just shade those in. So I'm going to start with his head. I'm just going to blend some of these down. There's a little shape around his eye. His eye itself is a little darker up at the top. I'm just going to blend those in with my pencil. The little pupil that's right there. Right above the pupil is this little shine. And so if you wanted to, you could add a little bit of value and just leave that shine out. Same thing with this eye. A little darkness in the corner. A little pupil about right in there somewhere. Now, have we discussed the reasons why we draw with the side of our pencil? Did we talk about those? Number one reason is it's fast. Number two reason is it's on the surface. Everything we've drawn so far is easily erased. We can erase this with our kneaded eraser and nobody will ever know because it doesn't leave ghost lines behind. Last but not least, these lines are much, much better. It's easier to lay down your graphite this way. So just ever so lightly with the side of my pencil, there's no sharp edges, no hard edges here. I'm just going to shade in little areas of darkness that I see. Instead of drawing fingers, I'm just going to draw the little dark shapes around them. So here's some of that limb. There's a little dark shape right there underneath that little knuckle thing. Here's the back of his little hand. And oddly enough, when you're all done, you'll look at it and think, oh, hey, I just drew fingers. Well, I didn't. I'm drawing the shapes around the fingers or in between the fingers. The fingers will come through, or whatever they call those things. So all of a sudden you look at it and think, oh, Mr. Lowe, you just drew fingers. No, I just did the shapes around them. You think, oh, you just drew the mouth. No, I just drew the shapes around them. Okay, you're not drawing a thing. You're just drawing darks and lights. And you just kind of pick out those darks and lights as best you can. And somewhere along the way, it'll work out. It'll be fine. Don't be too concerned with it. Again, at this point, it's still very superficial. Everything here can be easily erased. If we draw lines around things, then we're stuck with those lines. You all know what I'm talking about. You've done it before. And that might be one of those things, one of those reasons that you say, I can't draw. It's because it's frustrated you. This is far less frustrating this way. Any kind of shape, just throw in that shape. Now, I know I make it look easy. It's because I've been drawing for 600 years. Or, give or take a year. But if you want to get good at anything, it takes practice. There's an artist, he lived back in the 16th century, early 1500s. His name was Michelangelo Buonarroti. You've probably heard of him. He's often considered one of the greatest artists ever. He said once, if you could see how much I practice, my artwork would not look amazing to you. So practice, that's an important thing. And that's really what this is all about today. Is number one, for me to share some of my knowledge with you. Number two, for you to practice. So really, I'm just looking at it, doing all these little dark edges. No matter where I see those little dark edges, I'm just going to throw those in there. Whether it's on the branches, in the fur, wherever it is. And really, when you're thinking about those little fingers, just draw the stuff in between. Don't think of them as little fingers, little alien toes. Don't even think of them at all. Just draw the darks and lights around them, and they'll come through. This little shape that's behind his foot right there, that's his other leg. The haunches of his other leg. So these little things are quite small. They kind of fit in the palm of your hand. They're kind of cute. They look scary. It's the big eyes. Yeah, it's that alien kind of. Whoa. Yeah. Yeah, they got those little sucky pads on there because they'll latch onto you and suck out your brain. Now, all these other things, there's a bunch of stuff up above his head. I'm not sure I want to deal with any of that right now. If you wanted to, you could put a few things up there. I'm not sure I like this one touching his head. I think I'm going to just do it above his head there. And here's one coming in this way, and maybe it comes out this way. But all that stuff is really things that we can put in later. Even the little branches and stuff, if you feel like you need that in there, we can put that in later. But right now, once you get it to where you think, okay, now I'm going to look at it. Are the proportions correct? Do I need to change anything? Do I need to adjust it? Is like I'm looking at that little wrist, and I think that little wrist needs to go wider. My wrist is a little narrower. So I am just going to go ahead and take my kneaded eraser and come in and just alter it, change it. because everything here is very superficial. You can easily erase things with your kneaded eraser. Also, I'm going to take my cotton swab here, and I'm going to just go in there and start blending some. Because you've got all those grays and everything, I do want to be particularly careful with the highlights. So like this little shiny part in his eye, maybe some of those little highlights over his eyelids, on his fingers, on the tips of his nose. I don't want to get any gray in there. But everything else can have a little bit of gray to it. So I can just smear that around. This cotton swab I've had since we drew together on Tuesday. And so I just kind of keep it around, and look how nice it's getting. After a while, it'll get kind of ratty and I'll have to throw it away. But right now, that gray that's in there, I can now blend that. It's nice and soft. See how it just softens up everything? So everything now gets a little bit of gray. So I'm just going to blend whatever I got, other than those really highlight light areas. Everything else is going to have a little bit of gray to it. And it's not enough. I still have to go deeper, darker, richer. Some of those edges, if you get rid of them, like this edge down here, I'm going to have to pull that out with my kneaded eraser, because I blended more than I should have. But that's okay. And remember, he's soft and fuzzy, so when you blend your edges, don't be afraid to leave it kind of bumpy. That little softness looks like fur. If we were to take a hard edge, a line, and put it there, then it wouldn't look that way. So you want to keep that soft, fuzzy edge going. All those little sketchy lines that we had in there are now disappearing. They're going away. And so now we're getting this little ghosty image of our thing. This is just so we can look at it and say, okay, is everything in the right place? Do I have my proportions correct? Is my composition good? Are the values looking good? Are the little wrinkles in the right place? Are the eyes in the right place? Again, if they're not, we can change them. Again, you can pick and choose. How much of this do I need to smear? Do I need to do it all or just part of it? And again, one of the last things you do is come in with your kneaded eraser and clean up anything. If you've got some highlights that need to stay in there, like I do, I'm going to clean those up, pull them off. Pinch down my kneaded eraser to a little point and just go in and pick out some of those highlights. I want to keep those nice and light. So little areas like on his knuckles. Those are your medium tones. Those are the grays, light grays. Now, if we want this to pop, we need some really dark areas. Our emphasis area is probably his head. Those eyes, those glaring eyes. So that's what you want to kind of concentrate on. So I'm going to go in now with my 6B pencil. And I'm going to darken in some of those areas. Whatever I started with that were really dark, Now I need to really darken those up. And this might be the first time I go in, but it won't be the last because I need it very dark. This is called contrast. We need to get that contrast in there. So I'm going to just go in and darken in some of those areas. Notice that I'm not like this anymore. I'm up like this. I could be like this, but I want a little stronger light, a little stronger contrast to it. So I want to be able to press a little bit harder and get those really dark darks in there. And since I've already smoothed out some of that graphite, whatever I lay into it now is going to be smooth. I get asked all the time, how do you get it so smooth? That's how you do it. You start out very smooth, very soft. Whatever you layer on that, it's going to blend out. If you start out too dark, it kind of ends up kind of streaky. And I want to really spend some extra time getting those eyes to look alive, to look like they're really there, they're really popping. And the reflection of the tree in the eyes. And that's the contrast that you're going to get there. That's what's going to happen. It's going to look, those darks and lights, going to just make it pop. Okay? You want that other eye to be just like that one. That contrast. Look how that pops. It just comes off the page. Almost looks three-dimensional. That's what your contrast will do. When you're doing fur, you don't want to do a lot of dark edges like we did here because there's little dark areas in the fur. And so I'm going to do a feathered line. It's this little, it's kind of a little flick. You drop your pencil in, you do a little flick. And if you go the direction that the hair flows, so in animals, starts out the center of the eyes, between the eyes, and these will flow this way, these will flow that way. So if I take my pencil and do these little flecks in those directions, and then a little blending, it'll look like fur. So here's that fur, and I'm doing the little feathered lines in there. They're just little flecks, fleck, fleck, fleck. This works for all sorts of things, whether it's a human eyebrow or animal fur. And sometimes you don't want to go in the same direction. Sometimes you want to do some one way and others. You also want to have a little longer line, a little shorter line, so it's not all the same. Varies it out, makes it a little more interesting. That's called a feathered line. Some little dots and dashes too, that might help it out. Once you get the eyes done and the nose in the right place, then things are going to start to fall into place. Once you get to that point where you're like, okay, that's looking pretty good, go ahead and blend it again. And you'll see that that fur kind of softens up. Try to stay away from the lightest areas. But all of a sudden, it'll be very fur-like, soft and fuzzy. One of the last things you want to do is go back into it with your kneaded eraser and just pull back out those lights that you've accidentally gone over. You can even add some more, like to his eye here. There's a bunch of little ones off to the side. You can pull out some of those. They just keep going. Just keep adding. That's really all it is. Just adding a little here, a little there, until you like it. The last little bit of graphite that you add, if you really want it nice and dark, you can't go back in and blend it. You've got to just leave it pure graphite on there so it's nice and dark. The picture's just a reference, by the way. If it doesn't look exactly like that picture, you're okay. Unless you're doing a portrait, then that's a little more, you want it to look a little more like what you're doing. But otherwise, the further you get away from the face, the faster you can draw. So I'm gonna zoom out away from his face a little bit. So you almost want to go as fast as you can now. You've got the important parts done. I'm going to switch back into this mode. This is a fast mode. And I'm just going to try to go as fast as I can. Kind of just like before. Use your feathered line, use your zigzag line, whatever it needs. Tree branches, things like that are fun. You just try to look at it and go, okay, what kind of texture do I see there? It's kind of bumpy. So you just kind of follow the darks and lights, and it's kind of random. But it's just scribbling, controlled scribbling. I guess technically that's really all art is, or drawing is. Scribbling. Scribble, scribble, scribble. Now, it looks like I've drawn a line around things, but I really haven't. Just let the edges take care of themselves. All I'm drawing are the darks and lights. And whatever happens in between, that's just what happens. One more blend and then some more little tight darks and lights, and we got it. Now, if we wanted this to look very photographic, we just keep doing the same thing until it looked like the photograph, or better, because we've changed it now. You can make your own drawing look better than the photograph. Again, we could have done this with our finger, but then we'd have messy fingers. You have messy fingers? I do have a sink over there, so if you ever need to wash your hands. But this way it just keeps it a little more controllable. So this is my last pass with the dark. Really want to make those little dark areas just pop. Make them really dark so the light comes forward and the back goes back. All that layering and that texture has gotten that fur to kind of look grainy. That's what you want, that kind of grainy texture. Again, you can make this even better. The more you do, the more you add to it, the more you look at it, the more you find, the more you draw, the better it's going to get. One of the last things you want to do to this is put your signature on it. However you want to sign it, it's up to you. But I'll show you what I do. About right here on the front there, if I'm looking at this, your signature could go back here too if you wanted to, but I'm going to put mine about right in there. That's a good place for it. You don't want it all the way on the edge, because if you decide to frame it, your frame will cover it up. And see how I didn't really draw the fingers in. I could go back into them and really darken them up. But most people look at that and go, I'm not concerned about the fingers. I think too often we get so concerned about little things like fingers and hair. As long as the eyes are good, everybody kind of stares at the eyes. Hopefully this has helped you. Hopefully you've had an enjoyable time. Hopefully it's fun for you. Hopefully you learned something. And hopefully you look at it and say, wow, I did better than I thought I would. Hopefully it's made your life a little bit better, because art makes life better. Truly believe it.